Hello, I'm Reza Guerro, Product Manager at PlantinApp. In this video, I'm going to show you our newest game-changing feature, the template-based dashboard. In our initial release, it's shipping with a KPI tiles template, which is a simple yet powerful way to radiate information about key performance indicators targeting any entities you have created using the Entity Builder. I've set up a simple demo app that most of us should be familiar with, an online store. As you can see, we've got a page here which lists all the orders that have come in. And while useful, it's lacking something. It would be great and helpful if we could surface some insights about the orders that have come in, even serving as a call to action. So let's do something about that. First thing you're going to want to do is make sure you're signed in as a user that has administrator privileges, because we're going to want to put our page into an edit mode. What edit mode does is lets us add modules to a page. So we'll do a quick search for dashboard, which shows us the PlantinApp dashboard. And you'll simply grab it and drop it above your listing. Now we see that it's on the page and the tiles need to be configured, but before we do, let's go ahead and close our page out of edit mode, just so we have a better representation of what things are going to actually look like. So two things you'll notice. One, there's a select template button, and when I hover over the tiles, there's a little cog that lets me configure them. So let's set the first one up. First thing that's going to happen is a pop-up will appear. It's going to ask us for a little bit of information. This goes pretty quick. So why don't we set one up, our first one, for new orders. We have the ability to change the background color or the font color of the tile, but we'll leave this one as it is for now. Next, we've got a built-in access to the Font Awesome 5 library. There are over 1,600 icons you can choose from. And that can be a little overwhelming to look through visually. So why don't we find something here that represents like a shop. I like the Shopify one. You'll notice the data source. This is basically telling the tile where it's going to be looking for its data. Now, you'll notice that there's a SQL option. So you could write your own queries and target any tables that you have access to in the database. This feature is not quite released yet, and so but it's there as a teaser for what's coming. So we'll leave it at entities, and we're going to pick an entity. These are all of the different tables or entities we've created in our Entity Builder in the configuration section of the App Builder. So I've got one here for order, and I'll pick that because that's what we're targeting. And I have several choices for my aggregate function. This is basically what sort of summarization we want to do around our data. We have count, sum, average, min, max. In this case, we're just going to take a count, and it wants to know what we want to count, the aggregate property. Well, I want to go ahead and count the instances of the ID that is generated by the system in this case, because I just want to know how many of something has happened. It wants to know what the interval is. And why don't we go ahead and see what's come in today. And it wants to know what date field. So it will go out and find all of the different fields that contain dates in your table or entity. Creation date and update date come with the system. But in this case, we want to go ahead and pick the order date that's a part of the order entity. The last thing we'll set up here is what format we want to see our data in. And we have some choices such as integers, decimals, money, rounded money, and percentage. But in this case, a simple integer will do just fine. You'll click Save, and you'll notice that immediately the tile is refreshed, and I have my icon, my title, the time period that I'm displaying across, and I have two orders, and you can see these two orders are from today. So let's set up another one. This time, let's take a look at all the orders that have come in, not just for today. And why don't we change the color? Go with like a purple. Pick a new icon. Why don't we do some sort of a cart? This will do, shopping cart. We'll keep our data source at entities. We'll pick the order entity again. You'll notice though that you could be pulling in data from different tables or entities and mix and match them as you see fit. But this particular case, we're going to just keep focused. There's plenty of good information to harvest out of our orders. I'll want to do a count again of ID. This time I'm going to leave the aggregate interval at all time. We'll base it on our order date again, and we'll keep it as an integer. So we can see there's a total of 11 orders that have come in all time, 2 of them today. Let's do another one, and we'll be a little more interesting this time. Why don't we take a look at revenue? We all know money is green, so we'll pick a nice shade of green here. Do a quick search for dollar, and we've got several choices. Why don't we take the funnel dollar, pick our order entity again. This time though, we're not going to do a count, we're going to do a sum. We want to know total revenue that's come in. The field that we want to do our aggregate on is going to be total, as we can see over here. And why don't we see what's happened this month? We'll base it on our order date again. This time we're going to go ahead and format it as money, and we don't need to worry about precision here, so why don't we round this one, and it'll round it up for us. Let's set up our last one. This time, let's take a look at how many items we've sold. You can always come back and edit these or change them if you don't like something, so you can play with the titles and the colors. Go with maybe an orange. You can get creative. Don't get too hung up on what the names are for the icons. Look at what visually is going to speak to what you're trying to radiate or represent. So we'll pick our order entity. We'll go ahead and do a sum again. This time though, we're going to want to do item count. So this particular entity is set up to give us a total of how many items were sold on each order. And we'll maybe target this year. I'm going to base it on our order date. And we'll do this one as an integer again. So we've sold 67 items this year, $173 this month, 11 orders all time, 2 of those which came in today. So you can mix and match this up, and that's about as easy as that. If you hit edit, you can always go back in and change something if you're not happy. You have some choices as well. If you click down here, you can change and enter in hexadecimal numbers or other ways to target a color if you have some branding that you're trying to maintain that's very specific. And as soon as you click save, you'll notice things refresh right away. So that's all it takes to set up out of the box the 4-tile template. But speaking of templates, let's take a look at what this select template does here. So the system ships with a default template, which is the KPI tiles that we're seeing. But we have a couple of options here. We could edit the template. I recommend not editing the default template, but rather using this clone button. And when you copy a template, it will create a new entry for you. Why don't we say we want to do 2 rows of 4. And these tiles and this layout is responsive. So as your screen size expands or collapses, the tiles will wrap. So if you were on a phone or something, they would be a single column stack of tiles, much like Bootstrap does. And you'll notice here, this is a very simple template. It's got some CSS that we could inject and change or write in if we wanted to do something special there on our own. But really what drives the cards is this dashboard default class. And in this case, it's got 4 cards by ID. And so I'm just going to copy this whole thing and paste it back underneath. And all I need to do is increment the IDs. And this is important. You don't want to reuse the same IDs. They need to be unique each time. So I'll increment my numbers to 5, 6, 7, 8. And once I hit save, you'll see 2 rows of 4 is the one I just created. I'll go ahead and select that one. So once I select this, you can see that I have the original 4 tiles that were created, And because they were ID'd 1 through 4, and this new template we've selected has IDs 1 through 4, they're still present on the screen. I'll simply go through and configure the new tiles in the same manner that I did the others. And so we can do things now like average order size, pick our order entity. We'll aggregate by taking an average. Going to do it across total. And we'll go ahead and say all time in this case. Do it against our order date. And we'll go ahead and format this one as money. So you can see the difference where I had rounded the money, but in this case I didn't round. So I can know very precisely that $86.75 is our average order size. You can see I think I meant to say all time, but I'd picked this week. So we can come back, pick all time and save. It will recalculate and refresh right on the fly. So let's set a few more of these up and take a look at what it's going to look like. And so that's all there is to it. This looks pretty good. We've got a nice mix of information we're radiating. And now this page really pops. It's telling us a lot of things, and you don't really realize how rich your data is and how just off a few simple fields you have so many insights you could get. Now there's one matter we want to take a look at. I had mentioned at the beginning of the video that you'll want to log in as an administrator user in order to set this up. And that also is what enables the little cog to be shown when you hover, as well as the select template interface. However, regular users of the site won't see that. So why don't we sign in as a regular user of the site. In this case, it'll be a salesperson that works at our company, Sally, and we'll see what sort of things she would see when she signs in. So now we're in as Sally Sales. And you'll notice that Sally, because she's not an administrator, she doesn't have any of the options in the menu to go access the configuration or the persona bar. And in fact, when she hovers, she does not see any of the cogs, and she doesn't have the select template. So this looks pretty good, and this can be cues and calls of actions of how things are going. In our next release, we're going to be putting the dashboard feature on every new entity you create. And so out of the box, you can radiate just knowing counts over time today of things that are happening and records that are going in, but you can override, tune them, turn the feature off if you don't want it in a certain place. And so this is just the beginning for us. You're going to have a lot of flexibility and choices and new templates coming in the weeks and months to come. Things like line charts and stacked bar charts, being able to see change over time. So I could see my orders coming in daily, weekly, by different time frames, and they'll all be set up and configured in a very similar manner. So this should get you going and get you radiating that powerful KPI information to your users now, and be on the lookout for the next set of templates that are coming and other data sources that you can tap into as well. Thank you.